Now working, and there we go. Hello. So hi D. Hey Bob. Wow, in Tucson. There we go. Tucson, Arizona. Oops a daisy. Fantastic that you're here. Thank you for joining. Couple of glitches. First of all, there was absolutely no audio there whatsoever. So but now we fixed it. So good. Hope you're all doing well wherever you are in the world. So today what we're going to be taking a look at is an introduction to After Effects for designers and non-motion people really. So if it's not your usual area, if you normally work in things like Photoshop and Illustrator, then this is perfect for you. This is exactly where I want you to be, because you probably have Creative Cloud complete, okay, but what you don't have is the time to go and learn other things, or maybe you're slightly intimidated by learning other things. So let's see if we can dispel some of that, shall we? Let's just say hello to a couple of other people. Hello Robert, nice to see you. There you are, my very own YouTube. Hello Oliver, hello James, fantastic that you're here. Good afternoon, which is really nice. So we'll just if you have got anything to say or to add in or to ask, then the chat is the place to do it. I'm normally looking this way at a screen over here when I'm working, and right away over there on a really big screen where the control room is, and then there's a screen where the chat is. So I do have to kind of look, and of course I'm not 21 anymore, so sometimes I have to peer across at the chat. Hello EK, fantastic. As you know, Adobe have got a global day off today for Families Day, United Nations Families Day, and never been perhaps more important with so many people having to work from home as to have a day to recognise families, and especially with people working at home, right? Your family, they take the brunt of that. So I just thought, because we had problems on the Adobe stream yesterday, that I'd stream pretty much what I was going to do yesterday here on my channel. So if it's all right with you, I'll go ahead and get started. My face will disappear from the screen magically like that. There you go. I've gone. Okay, and here I am, okay, in After Effects. So this is what you'll see if you've never ever launched this before. Okay, and what I'm going to do is show you a couple of things around the interface, because you kind of need to know where you are, okay, to start off with. So this is what it looks like generally. This is the default workspace here in After Effects, and I can just confirm that like so. So you've got a whole bunch of panels on the side here. You can just double click to expand panels like so. Let me just reset. I went a bit too far there and did something else. You can just click between panels here. Double clicking fully expands them, as you've seen just there. And in the middle, this is the composition area. So this is where you put stuff together. Okay, if I just turn the camera back on a minute, actually, while we're talking about this. So this is where you put things together, this area here in the middle. Okay, and I kind of think that you might want to think about After Effects like InDesign. When you create a new project, right, that's kind of like a folder that holds everything together. And then the assets that you bring in, they get formed into comps for their use. Okay, so that's how they're used. All right, so, and then everything stitches together. You'll see what I mean as I go on. So the most important panels for you right now, okay, are this one in the middle, the composition panel, and this one down at the bottom here, the timeline panel. And that won't show anything at the moment because there's nothing up here. Now, when you get into After Effects yourself, okay, the first thing I want you to do, okay, after watching this today, is go to this workspace up here, okay, the Learn workspace. And if you click there, you'll get some tutorial content load on the side here. Now, this one will take you around the interface. This one, okay, will give you a couple of small things to do, okay, to get comfortable with making a comp. You'll make your first comp in around about, it says 20 minutes here. You'll probably, because you're all so smart, you'll probably do it in about 15, but there you go. I'm going to do this one, okay, for you. I'm not going to use the tutorial steps here, and I might change a couple of little things out. But from what I do in here, you're going to recognize that, okay, when you're working on it. So it will help you to learn. And a good way to think about this, I've just seen a comment on there which is making me laugh. A good way to think about this is think of it as Photoshop, but on wheels. That's the difference, right? Photoshop, static stuff in the main, not always, but with After Effects, movie. So I'm going to switch back here to the default workspace. Now, did you see the movie at the very beginning? If you're watching this live, you probably didn't. So I'm just going to show you very quickly a short movie, because Dee has commented on here and said, I saved it with the Space Cats. This is what she means. There we go. So they were the Space Cats that were in there. I promised yesterday Space Cats, and we'll actually be going into that that whole project a bit later on. Okay, so back to working through this thing in After Effects. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all bring in some more content, okay, or some content, because there's none here. And I'm actually going to start here with new composition from footage. Now we can get rid of my ugly fizzog just there. It's a great way of saying face, in case you've never come across it before. Okay, and I'll click new composition from footage, and I'm going to bring in this APEAK logo just here. Okay, now I'm doing this in the direction that the tutorial takes you through it. I might do it slightly differently, and of course there will be things I show today that if there are any motion people watching, they probably would have faster ways of doing it. I know faster ways too, but they're not going to help you when you're trying to learn. So here I've got APEAK logo. I'm going to import this as composition. If you import something as footage, it's just like importing a video, but this is an Illustrator file, okay, with layers. Now I'll just go to the composition here, okay, open, and then that gets added to this panel, the project. Now this thing here, if I just zoom in just for a second, hopefully you can see that, okay, is the composition. The thing underneath it is the contents of that composition, and you can see here, okay, you won't be able to see very much from the small preview window, but there are two layers in this Illustrator file. And one of the tips I give out frequently when I'm talking about interoperation between applications is if you're in an InDesign layout and you want to go to the kind of parent, okay, hello Sandrine, sorry, just throwing out random hellos. If you're in InDesign and you want to go and edit, say, an Illustrator or a Photoshop file, if you hold down Alt or Option and double click on it, that's the fastest way to get there. And you know what? After Effects does exactly the same thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Option, because I'm on a Mac, and double click on that, and you can see that it takes me out to Illustrator and opens up that file. Now, if you're not used to this kind of thing in Illustrator, this is just how it does video files. It does them with like safe areas, which no longer really desperately relevant in the world we live in now, but video folks like them. And here are the two layers. So there's the APEAK word at the bottom there and the logo, okay, on top just there. You see? So I got to the file, so if I needed to edit it, then I could do that. Okay, I'm going to close that up. I don't need to save the changes, and we'll go back to After Effects. So I'm going to double click on this composition in the project panel, and it opens up, and now I can see the layers just here. So there's the APEAK word just there, and there's the logo underneath. I can bring in other assets as well. Okay, so this time, because I can't see the little icons in the comp window, I'm going to double click in the project window. Okay, hello, hello Sandrine. Hello Captain. Colonel, it's Colonel. And this time I'm going to choose this. It's a movie file. Okay, Summer Forest, like so, in which we see a nice summery forest. And then I'm going to bring that in, okay, to the project. And then I'm going to simply drag that in, okay, to my comp timeline down here. Okay, now you can see that behind the content of the layer just there. Now if I drag it up on top here inside of the project timeline or the comp timeline, you can see that everything's hidden. So that's how you reorganize content by dragging here in this panel. Now this tells me how long this piece of movie is going on for, and you'll see here that at 10 seconds, that's the length of that clip, suddenly that disappears, right? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that everything here, okay, is 10 seconds long. Now if I start dragging like so, now to make sure that I snap exactly to that movie content, I'm going to hold down the shift key. You'll see that it snaps to that point. I'll just repeat that again just here like so. So this is just showing how long these things exist for in time. I could do that from the other end as well. So if I just maybe bring in the logo just here, okay, round about here, I'm going to drag this thing. This thing, by the way, is called the CTI, the current time indicator. That's what that's called. Okay, and there it doesn't exist. And about 1 second, in fact, exactly 1 second, boom, turning my camera on so I can say boom again to your faces. Boom. So you can see here that it doesn't exist until that particular time, and in it comes like so. So it's not there, and it is. So let's make that a bit more interesting then by animating it. Now I can click here in the comp window to select things. I can also use the layers here to select them, but I've got the logo selected. I'm going to drag this downwards, okay, and holding down shift to keep it locked in its constrained position, okay, in the y-axis. Then I'm going to change that position over time. So I'm basically going to take my playhead here out to 2 seconds, like so. Playhead, another way of referring to the CTI. Then what I'm going to do is twirl this layer open. So, and you'll see if I then twirl open transform, it gives me all of these properties. Right, so anchor point, we don't need to worry about that today. Position, we know what position is, where something is. Okay, scale, how something is. Okay, rotation, we know what that is. And opacity, ooh, I can't do that one with my hands, can I? Fade, like so. So we know what those properties are. Now, let's have a look at those words. Position begins with the letter P, scale begins with the letter S, rotation begins with the letter R, and opacity doesn't count. The opposite side of opacity is transparency. So for argument's sake, that begins with the letter T. I'm just going to collapse that layer again. Now if I tap P on my keyboard, you can see I get the position property. Now, if that's a bit much for you at the moment, you don't have to worry about that right now. Okay, you can just twirl the thing open and go with all the properties. So here we get a numeric reading of where this is, right? So this is a 1920 by 1080 document, right? Now, 960 is halfway across 1920, okay? And 1270 is well beyond 1080, and we know this already because it's actually underneath the movie. Now I'm going to zoom out just a bit here. Okay, you don't get to see things ordinarily that are underneath, that are off kind of the main area, but we can see that it's there because the bounding box is there. This thing over here, okay, the stopwatch allows us to add keyframes, right? And what keyframes are? Keyframes are a specific part of an event, okay, and then we animate the pieces in between those events. So just think for a moment, he says, reaching for his crystal ball. Imagine we were going to throw a ball. What actions would be involved in that? Well, we'd probably bring our arm up. That's a key event. From where our arm is to being up could be one key event. Then we'd bring the ball back. to throw it, another key event, and then we would go like that, and then the ball would be off on its own trajectory. So they're all key events. And the things that happen in between are betweens, or tweens as they're known. Okay? And that's something After Effects can do for us. So we need to tell it where the key events are. So when I click here on the stopwatch, that sets its current position, okay, at those numbers. Now I'm going to zoom in here, okay, so that you can see this diamond. This is a visual way of telling you where there's a keyframe, okay? So that's how that works. What I'm going to do then is take the CTI, remember that's current time indicator, that's the last time I'll say that, complete mouthful. I'm going to take the CTI back, okay, to just the point where it comes in, and then I'm going to drag this back up so it's in the right position, just there. Now there are more efficient ways of me doing that, right? But just for argument's sake right now, that's the way we're going to do it. Let's have a quick look at the chat, just because I haven't had a chance to have a look. Oh, people are chatting, which is nice. Let's see, who have we got? So we've got Oliver, Bob having a chat. Nice. Good, good, good. Okay, right, ready to see this happen? So if I drag the CTI, and let me just bring this up so you can see the whole thing. If I drag the CTI, right, now interestingly, yeah, there you go. I've done it the wrong way around, which is interesting, but now that's just me because I'm looking at that, looking at that, looking at that, but that's fine, don't worry. Normally you'd start the other way around. Okay, here's something I can do. I can drag over both of those keyframes here in the timeline panel. Then I can right click, go down to this thing here called the keyframe assistant and choose to time reverse the keyframes. Now that's fixed. And if I hit the space bar, you can see that play like so. Woo! There you are, it comes onto the screen. Now if you've never done anything that's actually animated before, you will be justifiably excited about doing that, right? You really will feel happy about doing it for the first time you do it. Everybody does, it's just a thing. So let's go ahead now and animate the word a peak just there. So what I'm going to do here is click on that. You need to target the object that you're going to work with. And I want to change its opacity over time. So I'm just going to tap T here. Okay, remember opacity is the flip side of transparency. So the potato effectively. Right, and I'm just going to actually change the length of this in the timeline. Don't have to do that. It just helps to be tidy. Visually, when you're looking at a timeline, you would want an idea. Imagine you're directing a play. You want to know when the actors are on stage and when they leave the stage, right? Other than just hanging around, standing there. If you were looking at this, it becomes effectively like a Gantt chart of a play at that time. That might alarm you. So here I've just reduced it. It's just good practice. This time I am going to take the playhead to this point. Now, how would I know exactly where that point was? Well, here's something else we need to examine. I'm just going to zoom in here on the side of my screen. This shows me, this is on the logo layer, okay, this shows me, all right, that there are keyframes on this layer. You'll notice there aren't any for opacity at the moment here, right? And I can actually move between keyframes using these arrows from side to side, and that's really useful, especially if you want to match things up. Now, you'll notice that this is grey for move to next keyframe. Just here, if I go to previous keyframe, it would go back to the first one, but as it was, because I've got ninja skills, you know, I managed to hit it. I was just lucky. So what I'm going to do here on the opacity, this is where I'm going to hit the stopwatch, and whatever property that layer has at that time, that moves onto that keyframe. Now I'm going to use the layer beneath to move to the keyframe before. Don't need to do that, could have been anywhere, right? But I'm going to do it. And then, and I'm going to zoom in again here, I'm going to use what I like to call stapler accident finger, this one here, and just drag to the side there to change the opacity. Alternately, you can click and enter a value like that, okay, and then just apply it. Okay, so there's a few things there, and stapler accident finger is very, very useful for you to move things around. Okay, let's have a quick peek at this chat over here. What we got? Oh, got a few things. Nice. Doctor Who. You're talking about Doctor Who while I'm doing this? Come on. Okay, so now you'll notice we can't see the word just there, but we move across like so. Okay, with the playhead here, you can see that that comes along and the word is fading in as the arrow or the logo moves upward. Now, not in the tutorial when you follow it through. This is, like I said, I'm going to add in a couple of little bits here. By moving the CTI, right, I can tell when the logo is above that word or on top of it. Okay, now what I think I want to do is I want it to start fading at that point. Yeah, so I'm just going to move the CTI back a little bit here. Then I'm going to take this keyframe and I'm going to drag it along to that point just there. And that does mean that transition will happen very quickly, like so. But let's have a look at how that plays out. There you go. So we don't see it fading in behind the other one. And if I wanted to, I could even take this keyframe, the one where it's at 100%, away a little bit. Okay. And there it goes. Fades in nicely afterwards. Cool, I think. Now we could enhance that still further, right, by adding a bit of an effect to that logo as it goes up. So what I'm going to do here is again target the logo. Now if you had a storyboard to work to, by the way, this whole job would be a lot easier, right, because you would know what's going to happen when, which of course you don't know or see at the moment. Okay, so but right, this is what it's like. Sometimes you move backwards and forwards, or maybe an art director or a creative director turns around and says, we need to blur that a little bit, okay, as it comes in. Fine. So we're going to do exactly that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the point where the logo is fully in, just here. Okay. Actually, no, I'm going to go for it at the start. Just there. I'll go for the start. Then I'm going to come up to the effect menu here. Now, if you're used to Illustrator, you'll see that that's very familiar. And in fact, if I just digress just for a second, in the layer menu, you'll see blending modes and layer styles, just like Photoshop, right? So that's, you know, a pretty good thing. So I'm going to go to effect here. I'm going to come down to distort, and then in here, I'm going to choose mirror. Pardon me. Okay, I'm going to choose mirror just there, and you can see that I've got this effect now. So another panel has popped up on its own called effect controls. In the effect controls, I've got things that relate to the effect, strangely. And here I've got this target. Now I'm going to click on that, and when I do, you'll see that this crosshair set comes with me. And I'm going to take this to the middle of the document and watch what happens. Take a good look at the trees right now and watch when I click. Okay, that's set. Now, I said take a good look at the trees, but the effect isn't fully set yet. So what I need to do here, okay, is I need to go ahead, right, and now make the effect work, right? So I'm going to move the playhead, okay, up to the point where the logo comes in, like so. Oh, I haven't added a keyframe yet, so we'll go there, like that. I'm going to go to effects here in the timeline panel. You can see mirror, okay, and you can see here that I've got this reflection center just there. That's fine. Okay, and then a few other options beside that as well. So there's a whole bunch of different things that I've got in here, such as effect, opacity, and all of that good stuff. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set maybe the effect strength. I think I was going to do just there, and change the blur when I've done that as well. So I've got my little mirroring thing. Okay, and now I'm going to add on top of there a blur. So I'll go effect and blur and sharpen, and then I'll choose fast box blur just here. The reason is I've done those two things in the wrong way around, because I wasn't thinking again and watching that stuff over there, the discussion on Doctor Who, and there you go. Fantastic, wibbly wobbly timely wimey. Fantastic. Right, so here I'm going to keyframe the blur in, okay, like so, right, and tap to keyframe it. Now I want 0 just there, or actually no, I want 25 just there, so I'll just put in a value of 25. Okay, now if I just bring the playhead forward or the CTI forward, you can see the logo all blurred. But now if I set that back to 0, okay, you'll see that. And I'm going to take the mirror that's currently on here and just delete that. Nice and easy to do. And actually, sometimes it's a good idea to make the odd error in here, because that way you'll see that it's easy to recover from. Right, so here's the blur for the logo. There you go. So the blur comes in, and that in itself is changing. Now this time, with feeling, I'm going to target the movie layer behind, and then I'm going to get the mirror in here. Okay. Then I'll click for this. Again, this time you really can watch the trees. And when I click, look at that. You can see they're now reflecting, okay, around that point. Let's play that out. Nice, right? Just the sort of thing you might use for social content, that. Really nice. Now the final step in doing something like this, of course, is it's got to go somewhere. Now we're not dealing with the interaction between, you are the naughty kid at the back. The nice thing with the interaction between Premiere and whatever, that's great, but we're not dealing with that here. We're dealing with After Effects in isolation. Let's take it just one step at a time. Okay, so what you'd do then is you'd go to the File menu. You would need to render this out, so you would need to export it. Now we're not going to do it with the media encoder. We're going to add this to the render queue, and that's After Effects' own internal renderer, right? Because you have to composite all of this stuff together. Yeah. So here I am in the render queue. Okay, now this best settings is just fine. Lossless is just fine. Then I need to determine where it's going to go. Well, I've actually already exported this one, but I'll click it again here. Okay, so this is going to go to apeatlogo.movie here, QuickTime, that's just fine for now. Okay, and save like that. Now you might get slightly different settings if you're on Windows, but don't worry, you'll get the idea, right? Okay, so just choose where it's going to go, and this will deal with it for you. Okay, if I hit render, you can see this little render thing going on here, but progress bar action. I always wanted to open a bar called the progress bar, by the way. Never did. Okay, so the progress bar moving along like so, rendering out that content. And once that's completed, if I just go back to my Finder just here and create a new Finder window, go to the desktop, you can see that's rendering just there. It's not complete yet. Okay, but in that comes. And if I just click on it, right, okay, it's not finished. It's not quite refreshed on there yet, but that would be ready for me to use elsewhere. So it's not too hard, right? Let's have a quick look at what's going on just here. What we've got going on, right? So, yes, we've got good stuff. Good. Yes, there we are. Fantastic. Right, so I am going now to go into my earlier file. Let's have a look how we're doing on the time. Just there, we are good. So I'm going to close this particular project. I'm actually not going to save this one, that's just fine. Okay, and then I'm going to open up the project that you saw at the beginning, one that has space cats. Okay, so get some space cats in there. This looks a bit more interesting here because it's got a few more layers and it's got some other stuff. So let's examine this, and then I'm going to tell you a bit about how I built it, and also some of the things that I've added in here, okay, that make this very different from the other one. But essentially the techniques that you saw in the other one, yeah, you could apply here. And also in the tutorial movies, if you follow the tutorials through in After Effects, okay, you'll find that first one just there. There are a few others that, while I haven't tried them out, reading about them has told me that they will cover a lot of the stuff you see in here. It really isn't too difficult there. Greenbeard's scary. Okay, so watch this, right? Okay, I'm just going to hit the spacebar here. Now, to start off with, Now that's actually working all right. One more thing. Can you see the green bar at the top of the timeline just here? Zooming in for you. That green bar. That tells me the render progress, because sometimes, especially if you do things that are a little bit complicated inside of After Effects, it can't just show you them. It needs to actually create the individual frames for that to happen. Right? And this is at 30 frames a second, so it needs to do that 30 times for each second. Right? And so sometimes it will be slow, but at the moment it's using the previous render to do this, so it's all happy. So from the start, what I've got here is I've got an Illustrator file in the background. Let me just turn off some of the layers here so you can see it. So this is an Illustrator file. I'm going to tell you how I built that in a moment. Okay, then there's this swirly wheel just there, again Illustrator file. Then there's my first AstroCat. Now if I click on AstroCat for the visibility, you can't see AstroCat. That's because AstroCat, okay, is actually off screen. If I click AstroCat, you can just see a path like so. Okay. Then you've got Bo Ulfson, but again you can't see him because actually he doesn't even appear on screen until this particular moment in time. Okay, and then you've got this, so that's the text actually. Then you've got Bo Ulfson just there, then you've got the two space cats. So if I move forward like so and bring everything onto here, here's what you've got. Right, so there you've got the background. So I'll just turn them on and off again. Right, so the background, the swirly wheel, you've got the AstroCat just there in the background, space cat. Then you've got the text for Bo Ulfson's extravaganza. Then you've got Bo Ulfson himself. Yeah. Then you've got Space Cat 2, and then you've got Space Cat 3. The cast is assembled. Right, let's have them play. There we go. So spacebar to play that. You can also stop it with the spacebar, but spacebar to play. So now you can see the cats here are doing a few different things. So that will just carry on looping across, right? So I'll stop that at that particular point. So this cat is actually moving across a trajectory here. Okay, and if I press the spacebar again, you'll see at the same time there's a little bit of a wobble going on there. Okay, and we'll wait until the others. And so these two here are coming up from off the frame, right? So under the frame, there to start off with, both at the same time. And then as they come up, they are both kind of floating around in space, okay, like so, and moving from side to side. Now there are keyframes involved in there, but there's not as many as you would think, right? So that's what we're going to take a look at. Before we do that, let me show you how I built the file for the background, and also take a quick look at the comments just here. Thanks for commenting, peeps. And yeah, okay. Well, we've all got a lot to learn, Jackie. All of us. We all have a lot. Hi, Tolga. And let's have a look. Cats in space. Sandrine, you are showing that you are over 21 by adding that. That was the Muppets back in the 1980s. That one. There's all. Do you know Terry Gilliam is a big influence on my work and always has been. If you watched any of my stuff on LinkedIn, like my designing a presentation course, you would see tons of Terry Gilliam in there. But there we are. Oh, I've got a message held for review. That's fine. I'm going to let that one go. That's fine. Fancy Friday streams. I'm not in fancy dress today, though. I could be in just a few seconds. There you go. Instant fancy dress. Perfect. Okay, there we are. The Muppets were great. Very good. Anyway, right, let me go to Illustrator. Right, who can remember the quick way, right, with the content that I've got here? So this is a background comp. All of these are comps here. You can work with Photoshop files and Photoshop layers directly in the timeline, but comps give you a little bit of extra latitude, right, with things that you can do. And what I'll probably do is a second stream for these things here. Let me just go ahead and show you. So if I go into BG, I've got BG layers just here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and open that file. So here it is in Illustrator, and each of these rings, okay, was separated out into their own line. Now, very quickly, because I know a lot of you, you're all here to see some After Effects stuff, but you want to see the stuff around it as well, right? Because that helps you to work with it, because that also shows you why some things are really important in Illustrator and Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file like so. I'm not particularly worried about the file dimensions here. Now I'll show you how I built that whirly wheel. Okay, so I got the polar grid tool just here. I went for the center of my document to start off with, even though I'm drawing off to the side like so. Now I'm going to continue drawing, okay, and I am going to add some more dividers just here like so. Okay, so I'm just using the arrow keys here to add more dividers, and I basically want odd, even, and all the way around. So I've got enough there to start and finish in the same place. Then I'm going to use my down arrow here to change the number of concentric circles there. So that's pretty much, actually I want to do one more just there. No, I don't want to do two. There we are. Then I hold down the Option key to draw from center. Then I hold down the Shift key, okay, to constrain the shape like so. Now I just noticed another comment there from a few minutes ago, or it's just kind of shown up for me, and that is, okay, that's one of the weirdest, mightiest toolbars I have ever seen. That's because I've got lots of extra tools. I do. And I've got lots of extra tools because I subscribe to, or I don't subscribe, but I pay for the annual service plan, which is kind of a subscription, I guess, but it's just one hit a year, to the plugins from Astute Graphics, who I ought to give a shout out to, because here they are. This is the Astute Graphics manager just here. You get all of this lot, all of these great tools here, okay, for like £100 plus VAT a year. Right? That's what it works out, £119. Exactly the same dollars, $119, 119 euros. But that gives you so much power, so much. In fact, I'll use a couple of them just here, just to show you completely. So once I'd got this particular shape, what I did was I first of all killed off the stroke. So I tapped X to switch the focus on my stroke. Let me bring Illustrator back in. X to turn the focus, and then hit slash. You see that? No fill or stroke. Then I turned it into a live paint group. So the shortcut for that is Option Command or Alt Control X. So now it becomes live paint. Okay, and then I tap K for my paint bucket like so. Okay, and it starts highlighting sectors. I then chose the colors that I want here. Okay, so I'll start off with the pink color there, and I went across like so. Okay, basically doing these things here. If I just go ahead and do, well, I guess kind of I'm into it now, really, aren't I? So I guess I better do them all like that. Okay, so I end up with something like this, and then I went ahead and did the other colors like that. Makes it very quick to make that particular asset. Whoops-a-daisy, I'll just undo that. Okay, and go ahead, color those up, and then I switched to a different color. I switched to this yellow, and then did all the stuff that wasn't there. Okay, like that. Once I'd got that, okay, and now what I could have done actually to save myself a bit of time there was to fill everything in at the beginning with the yellow, and then go ahead and do the pink, or vice versa in there. But I got this lovely, beautiful, violent array of color here, like so. And once that was complete, I came across to the quick actions area in the properties panel inside of Illustrator and hit expand. Okay, oh, Kirsty's here as well. Hey, Kirsty. The fantastic. Okay, so I could go ahead then and oh, got a bit of a lock just there. Yeah, so then I go ahead and I expand that out, so that then becomes just a regular group. And where the actual advantage came in for me working here, whoops-a-daisy, let me just say, get rid of that just for a second. Got a slight problem here with my trackpad. Bear with me a second. My trackpad's gone a bit bonkers, so we'll fix that hopefully in just a moment. And there we go, we've got connection. Whoops. So once I've done that, I've gone ahead and expanded it. Then I needed to kind of separate this out. So I'm going to ungroup it completely until it says path. Here's one of the things. How would you go about selecting this, by the way, with the regular selection tool? Would you just go ahead and click and shift and shift and shift through all those things? You could, you know. It would only take you a few minutes. But here, with the Astute tools, I've got this little puppy called the Super Marquee tool. And watch what happens when I drag that. I can just select that center like so. You can't do that with the Illustrator tools. And then I'd group that together like that. And then I'd drop that out onto its own layer. But I'd then use other mechanisms to get the other ones here. So if I just add another layer here, pull that onto it and lock that. Okay, I might still use the Super Marquee tool, but I might change the way that it works by double clicking on it and say make it elliptical, right, or even circular, just there. Okay, and then go ahead and just do that. Yeah, to select all of those middle things just there. There we go. Same thing again, right? I'll just basically add a layer like so, and then drag that content. I'm using the proxy region, by the way, here in Illustrator, like that. But that's all I need to show you just there. Once that comes in, you could do select similar fill. That would work really, really well. It would. Yeah, you could definitely do that. The only thing is, Sandrine, by the way, here is, yeah, that you'll end up selecting everything that's got that. It's not as easy as it sounds. So similar fill will work, yeah, but just try it out and see, right? See how it works for you. Anyway, I'd get those things separated out onto individual layers. Now you'll notice if we go back into After Effects that these look slightly different. These have got sort of an outer glow or an inner glow on them as well. Did I add that in After Effects or sorry, in Illustrator? Well, I could have done, but I didn't. I actually did it here in After Effects. So I'm actually going to build that part out for you, okay, or show you how it got built up. Now I've got the BG here as a comp. Yeah, what I could do here is just go into that comp and show you. So let me just turn off all the bits you don't need to see here. Right, so you'll see here are the Illustrator layers, like so. Okay. Now what I've done with those, let me just clear the layer style off of this one just here, outer. In fact, you know what? I'm going to clear it off a couple. Right, so the layer styles here have now disappeared from those two rings. I did tell you it's just like Photoshop, right? In a lot of ways, Photoshop on wheels. I'm going to select inner 2, and in fact I'm going to hide everything that is not inner 2. Yeah, just there at the minute. So there's inner 2. I then went up to the layer menu, came down to layer styles, okay, and I chose inner shadow just here. Now it doesn't do a lot on its own. You've actually got to get in and open this up here. Right, so just going back to where you'd be to start off with, if you added that, it would just look like that, inner 2. Use the disclosure triangle to twirl that open. You've got transform just there and layer styles. Okay, and then I've got inner shadow. So I'll just click on that one. Okay, and then I need to just change the size. Yeah, like so. And I can also change the opacity of that. Yeah, so let me just bring that up, down. There you go. So change those things. Nice and easy to do that. I think I put a bit of choke on there as well, actually, or maybe not. That's gone from the right down to the individual shapes. Right, change the opacity and the blend mode and all of that stuff. That's basically how that happened. Yeah, now I just need to then show you another thing that you can do here that you can do in Photoshop. So I'll just clear the layer style from this one, from inner 2, just for a minute. I'm going to make everything visible. In Photoshop, when you apply a layer style to something, right, you can actually alt drag or option drag that layer style onto other layers. You know what, you can do pretty much the same thing here. I'm going to click here on layer styles. Okay, but I'm not going to alt drag it. I'm going to copy it. So Command C. I'll then target a layer that I want to apply it to and Command V, and suddenly it's got that on. And then I can go to the outer layer just here, Command V, and it's got that as well, right? So I can bring those things on. A comp, let me just answer a question here. The hardcore fans from Adobe Live in House. Very true. Very true. Okay, so what do you call a comp? A comp is a composition. Yeah, After Effects is made of loads of different compositions. Yeah, right. So you put together a composition, that way you can animate everything together. Right, it makes it easier to work with. There are other advantages as well, right? But that's one of the main advantages there that you've got from that. Okay, so that's what a composition actually is. Okay, and here it gets its own timeline. If you look down at the bottom of the timelines, in fact, if I zoom in just here, you can see I've got a few things right now. Actually, I don't need that render queue to be shown, but you can see that I'm actually in the BG timeline there, and there's full, which is the name of the comp that I've got everything in. That's just what I happen to have called it. I can close the BG timeline. Here's the full composition, and each one of these things is a composition. When you do the tutorial, remember that at the beginning, okay, I said that the learn space here, there's different tutorials you can do there. That will actually take you through understanding how to make a comp and what a comp is if you miss that bit right at the very beginning. Okay, so that's kind of how it goes. So because we're actually at 12:48 and we're not going to have that much longer, so I've got to hard stop, as they say, hard stop at 1 o'clock. Right, then we're going to just look at a few more things in there. So that's how I built that file. Let's have a look at the space cats here. Let's have a look at the space cats that are coming up onto the into the screen there, and then they're kind of floating around, as space cats tend to do in space, like that. Okay, so they're floating around just there. Okay, so let's have a look at those inside of the timeline here. In fact, if I just turn off everything actually, apart from just the space cats. Now I'm going to highlight both of those. I've held down Shift to highlight both layers. And there's a key you can press in After Effects on your keyboard in After Effects that will show all of the things which are applied. So basically it ignores things, right, that there's no property for, no property set. Yeah. And that key is the U key. Yeah. When I tap that, okay, it shows me all of the set properties, and you can see here that for the cats, right, their position and their rotation, okay, are the things that are affected. Now I'm going to clear the rotation for Space Cat 3. In fact, I'm going to hide Space Cat 2, but I've hidden both because they're both targeted. Right, let's go. I want to work with Space Cat 2. Okay, so I've hidden everything else apart from Space Cat 2. I'm going to clear the rotation keyframes. Now, there's a couple of different ways I can do that, but the quickest way is to come ahead, click on the stopwatch. Now, I could undo. I'm not going to undo. Yeah. Right, but that clears any set properties. All the keyframes go at that particular point. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, I don't need any animation for our catch. Doesn't do anything. Oh, thank you, Kirsty. I've just seen that Kirsty has said, I like the Space Cats song in the video. Yes, it's amazing. There's going to be more Space Cats. We need more Space Cats in the world. Right, so let's have a look then at the rotation property. So what I'm going to do here is, okay, I'm going to bring this up to the point when it's fully on screen. Okay, I'm then going to click to keyframe the rotation here, and I'm going to rotate the Space Cat around a little bit. It would help if you could actually see it. Oh, I'm working on the wrong Space Cat. Let me undo that again. Let's change my layers up, you know. Just going to step through that and undo that. I'm going to hide that one. So on Space Cat 2, clear the rotation. Now I'm going to click to create a new set of rotation here and rotate the Space Cat around a little bit. Maybe like that would be good. I'm going to go back to the beginning here while it's off screen because it needs to be rotating as it comes on screen. and I'll change the rotation value there. So we'll set that down to like 14. So as that comes in, you can see that it's rotating as it goes along that path there. Then I'm going to come along and basically get to this point around about here, and I'll change the rotation back a little way, like so. Then I'm going to come along here and just change that back still further. So let's have a look how that plays out. I'll bring the CTI back to the front. Now it's doing that slow bit there, right? But I'm having to do it myself. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clear the 2 keyframes here in the middle. Okay, so I've selected those and I'm just going to hit delete. Right. So those 2 keyframes have gone. Now when the cat comes up, so let's watch. It's just doing a very quick rotation that way. A property you have in After Effects called wiggle. Yeah, and wiggle will introduce some variation, right? Just so you don't have to do it, right? We'll introduce a little bit of variation. So what I'm going to do is, let me bring the cat back on here just so you can see it. I'm going to come across to the Effects and Presets panel on the right hand side here, which if you've got the default layout set correctly, and you can always reset it, okay, using this little menu just here, Workspace Switcher, Workspace Reset. I'm going to go into this window and I'm going to type into this search field, type wiggle, like so. And you can see now I've got a few different wiggles. I've got wiggle rotation. I'm going to drag that onto the cat. I could do it here or in the timeline, but the cat's a bigger target. Suddenly, right, this field lights up like so. Now, I actually already had, I think, a wiggle on there earlier. In fact, there I did, wiggle rotation 2. Okay, so that one's actually already set. I had one here, but I'll just get rid of that like so. Okay, I've got some transform stuff. That's a little bit of a transform wiggle there too. Okay, so I'll go to this wiggle here. I'm going to change it to, so this is how many wiggles a second. If I do one wiggle a second, this is what happens to its rotation. Doesn't look very spacey, does it? Because it's too quick. It's doing da-da-da from side to side for a second. If I change this, I'm going to go decimal now, okay, to 0.2, okay, like so, right? Let's make that. You can see now I've got that lovely spacey wiggle going on. Yeah, okay, and you can set frames in between if you want to control it a little bit further to get it to wiggle between those. And you've got these parameters just here as well, so you can say how much it's allowed to wiggle by. I've just changed this to 43, and now it's wiggling a bit more. If I make that less, I'll make it maybe 6. Yeah, then you'll see it will only wiggle those 6 degrees. Right, so it's a nice way for you to introduce a bit of variation in there. And there's a lot more you can do. That's not enough, right? It needs to be like 35, something in that region to do that properly. So it's properly space catty. Yeah, I'll turn the visibility on for everything else just here. Let's see that play out. So there you go. Both of our space cats are wiggling. Yeah, nice and spacey. It is rendering that. That's why it's happening really slowly. Remember what I said about the green bar at the top? Well, the CTI was at this point when I pressed the space bar. Right, so that's all rendered. Now it's just rendering the front part. And then once that's all done, you'll see it play through in real time. Okay, now there are times when you don't actually want it to play through in real time, especially if it's big and complex. Right, but here you go. Right, so that's working really, really well, I think. In fact, if you take a look at the Bo Ulfsson's thing here, right? Let's go to that one. Okay, so I think that's this one. There we go. And what I'm going to do is twirl that open in the timeline. I'll close the other things up. Now, what I could have done is just gone UU and then UU again, or U again to close everything up. But here, you can see that while I have that selected, in the effects panel here, there's a wiggle going on, 2 wiggles a second. That makes him a bit compassy like that. Okay, so it really every half second it's doing a different wiggle. Okay, around a 30-degree radius just there. Okay, and if I just play that or just drag across it, here we go, I'll play that. You can see that happening, kind of like a nice compass effect there. And his is also happening from the bottom of the chin, not the center as the default. And if you ever need to move that point, you have to use a tool here called the pan behind tool. Now you don't need to worry too much about this at the moment, but the pan behind tool allows you to manually set that point. It's not a good idea to do it once you've done an animation, because you're actually potentially animating that point at the same time, but that's how you do it before you add the animation. But like I said, that's for another day. Hopefully though, you've got an idea of how relatively easy it is to get started in After Effects. What I recommend you do is go through those tutorials in the Learn space. Okay, so try those things out. Learn the basics of the interface. It's always a good idea when you go somewhere new to have a look around and get your bearings. Then work through this one with the basics. Like I said, 20 minutes is the scheduled time it says it will take on there, or the estimated time. You're really smart, right? So you're probably going to do yours in about 15, maybe even 10. Some of you are that cool. Yeah? And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and add more tutorials. There's about 5 or 6, I think, in the series, maybe 7. But yeah, do those. Then start making your own graphics. Start thinking about the layering of your graphics. Set yourself a project, sort of maybe you want to make a monster face with wobbly eyes. Think about how you might do it. Think about what you would need to do that. So, for example, if you were doing something like that, you'd need the face with cutouts for the eyes. You'd need the pupils themselves, the thing that we're going to things that we're going to rotate around, and then you need a layer behind that. So behind even the face. So the layer stack would be this. The face would be on top. Behind that would be the eyes that are going to wobble around, and behind that would be the backs of the eyes, because otherwise you'd see through them. So it's a good idea you to do something nice and easy, get straightforward and started, get started in a straightforward way like that. So tutorials, and the best thing to do to reinforce the learning is for you to go ahead, get your own files and do things like that. To pick a simple project. I want the sun to come up over some hills and set on the other side. There's the cat here that flies across is using something called a motion path to do that, and some wiggle on the rotation. That's how the chief space cat is flying around in the background just there. It's just been promoted. And there you go. Do that. I'm around to answer questions on Twitter, so at Tony Harmer. If you've got questions, you can ask me about that. You can also ask comments. Ask questions here in the comments thing. This is a separate thing, by the way, to the whole Behance Live stuff, Adobe Live stuff. This is obviously off my own channel, but I just thought I'd put something in today because yesterday didn't work out. But join the Behance Lives in the UK every day at 12. Check Behance in your own region for where things go out there as well. So Germany, I think 11 AM, UK midday, France 1 PM, and then in the afternoon the American streams come up and so on. But there will be others in other regions if you're watching it there. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed having a lot of you here, which is great. I look forward to seeing you next week. And different things. Let me just see if there's anything I need to answer just here. Oh, there we go. Evil Sorry, I have to approve some emojis for some reason. I don't know why. So fantastic. Yeah, that similar thing, Phil, by the way, Sandrine, the thing I mentioned earlier on. Yeah, check that out and see if it's that easy to do. But anyway, right, unless, actually you could make that work, but you'd have to involve different colours to do it. All right, but you could do it, I promise. Okay, well, I was also wondering if there was a similar trick of copy and pasting effects in Illustrator. Do you know the best way to work in Illustrator with that would be graphic styles? to do that. Create a graphic style, and that way you can do it with one click from there. Last effect is the one that you've pointed out just there. You are welcome, Jackie. Fantastic. I draw a space cat pattern. Maybe I should work out and share it on my Behance profile. Yeah, you could do that. Oh, my cat lives. I hope my cats live to 20. That would be lovely. Hello, Julia. Fantastic. And there we go. So plenty of you in. But don't worry, you can. Oh no, somebody. Oh, Jackie's daughter's had a poking up. Sounds like. Oh dear, something with the eye. There you go. So let's just show that. I don't know why yours is being highlighted there. Evil. No idea. No idea. Evil. You're not evil. Fantastic. There we are. Anyway, we are done for now. Okay, so I'll catch up with you next week. Fancy Friday streams. And otherwise, if you're watching this on demand or later on or whatever, I hope you're all doing well. Everybody, yeah, stay safe. Everybody. Right, that'd be really good. Thanks very much. Really appreciate you watching. I'm going to just try and find the control room window now so I can close this out. Something's gone wrong and I can't find the control room. And obviously I'm available for hire for different events here, for singing, bar mitzvahs, all of that sort of good stuff. Here we are. I'm about to hit the control room now, and then we will stop. But love to you all. Yeah, take good care of yourselves. All right, and see you soon. Bye.